Hi everyone. Today we will start Systems of Social Mobility, the continuation of this chapter. First one is Open Social Mobility. In the open system, individuals are assigned to different positions in the social structure on the basis of their merits or achievements. It is generally characterized with occupational diversity, a flexible hierarchy, differentiated social structure, and a rapidity of change. In such systems, the hold of ascriptions based corporate groups like caste, kinship, or extended family, etc., declines. The dominant values in such a system emphasize on equality and freedom of the individual and on change and innovation. It's completely based on individual, his effort, and it's his position. Next, closed system, closed social mobility. Here, a closed system of mobility is that where non-prescribed mobility. Thus, the closed system emphasizes the associative character of the hierarchy. It justifies the inequality in the distribution of means of production, status symbols, and power positions, and discourages any attempt to change them. Any attempt to bring about changes in such a system or to promote mobility is permanently suppressed. The individual in such system are assigned their places in the social structure on the basis of ascriptive criteria like age, birth, sex, etc. Consideration of functional suitability or ideological notions of equality of opportunity are irrelevant in decline deciding the positions of individuals to different status. However, no system is reality in perfectly close. Even in the most rigid systems of stratification, limited degree of mobility exists. Here, based on it, this close social mobility is permanent mobility, like it's depend on age, birth, sex. But in open social mobility, it's depend on individual. Next, we'll see traditional caste system in India. Uh, Example of closed system. Next, in that there is a flow chart. Mobility means it's a movement of social mobility. In that first, horizontal and vertical mobility. Horizontal means already change in position but not in the status. They change their positions, not in the position, not in the status. Change means they change their jobs or residence without changing their status. This is horizontal. Vertical means movement from one status to another status. It may be going from lower status to higher status, or it may be from higher status to lower status. Next, B, open and closed models of mobility. Here, we'll see two types, open and closed. In open, free movement in status changes. Uh, Status can be achieved by getting motivated or encouraged to mobility. And next, people have liability, means legally responsible of change status or positions. This is open. And closed, status is based on birth or caste. it is difficult to change. Just now we saw that. And next we'll see third one, C, intergenerational mobility. This is between two generations. Here is a video clip. You can watch this.
Hello, I want you to meet this wonderful family. It's Mary, the mum, Jim, the dad, and Ian, the son. And they're going to help us to understand some key concepts about social mobility. Now, Ian is an accountant, so he will be considered middle class. And if this triangle represents the upper class at the top, middle class in the middle, and lower class at the bottom, he would typically be considered as an accountant to be in the middle class. So what would happen if in his lifetime he got a series of promotions and ended up as the CEO of this international accounting firm, ended up making an absolute boatload of money, and actually joined the upper class? He would actually move up in terms of his social standing. What about on the flip side? What if he had some real struggles at the company, got fired, and ended up in a really poorly paid job, maybe in a manual job, maybe as a factory worker? He would perhaps move down. In his lifetime, he would perhaps join the working class or the lower class. So one of the important things to consider here is what's happening to Ian. It's happening to him in his lifetime, in his own lifetime. Whether he goes up or down, this change in social mobility that he's experiencing is one that is affecting him in his own generation, in his own lifetime. And this is something that we call intragenerational mobility. And the important thing with intragenerational mobility is that it's affecting Ian in his lifetime. Now, there's another concept I want to introduce you to, and that concept is a little bit different. And that concept is actually called intergenerational mobility. And just like intragenerational mobility, these concepts are both really describing types of social mobility, particularly social mobility up or down the social hierarchy. Now, what's different about intergenerational mobility is that we really need to consider Ian's parents, because intergenerational mobility actually considers them in addition to him. Instead of just looking at what is happening to him, we have to really consider where they stand on the social ladder. So let's have a look at them. So they were manual workers, laborers, working class or lower class. And then Ian ended up being a CEO, for example, in the upper class. We would see that across generations, there was a change in their social group from a lower class to upper class. So really one of the key concepts between both of these is that when we consider intergenerational mobility, we are considering social mobility change in a person's own lifetime, while when we consider intergenerational mobility, we are considering social mobility changes across generations.
Okay, next we'll see.
Hi everyone, my name is Carissa and I'm a tutor here at Check. I'm going to be talking about social mobility.
Okay, next we'll see change in mobility. It means new opportunities for group mobility within traditional status hierarchy has been appearing in recent decades. They have emerged from the impact of first urbanization and next westernization. We'll see detail regarding urbanization. Urbanization, first one, urbanization. It means urbanization is the increase in the portion of people living in towns and cities. Urbanization occurs because people move from rural areas to urban areas. This usually occurs when a country is still developing. There are emergencies like industrial employment. Industrial employment means it applies to every industrial establishment wherein 100 or more workmen are employed. Next, we'll see easy communication. Easy communication means it is an act or process of using words, sounds, signs, or behaviors to express or exchange informations or to express your ideas, thoughts, feelings, etc. to someone else. Formal a message that formally a message that is given to someone like a letter, telephone call, etc. This is regarding easy communication. Next, efficient distribution of goods and services. Uh, if you are seeing in olden days, uh, all the caste they're not getting the goods. Only higher level people they used to get all the goods. For example, the Brahmins used to get good food, but not in Shudras. So to make equality, the government started distributing the goods and services to each and everyone. This distributive efficiently occurs when goods and services are consumed by those who need them most. Distributive efficiency is concerned with an equitable distribution of resources because of the law of diminishing marginal returns. Equally distribution has made here. And next, centralized administration has made urban living a more accessible alternative to more people in India than ever before. Even other factor responsible for mobility means before uh, already we saw there is no e- uh, they were not seeing people equally, so government made a plan uh, to to give equal rights to everyone. uh, so because of this, in who's living in urban areas, they started accepting everyone. This you can watch in a movie called Article 15. uh, uh, Regarding this whole chapter, some of the points you can observe, you can understand easily this topic. So I suggest you to watch a movie called Article 15. And next point, no rigidity of caste, religion, ritual traditions, and social control in the cities. Means they can change, they can adopt other caste or religion, other traditions or social controls in the cities where they are living. And next point, loosened hold of traditions. Means some people they followed the traditions what their forefathers followed, and they continued their traditions. But some they didn't follow that. They left the traditions, and which is convenient for them, they started adopting those things. So because of these reasons, loosened hold of traditions we can call. And next, achieved status as a result of behavior and attributes rather than birth in case of cities. Uh, because of their behavior, because of their status, because of their behaviors and birth in they're born in cities. Because of that, their status are increased. This is regarding urbanization. Next, we'll see industrialization. Industrialization is the period of social and economic change that transfers a human group from an agrarian society into an industrial society. This involves an extensive reorganization of an economy for the purpose of manufacturing. According to Harold Gold, industrialization brought about transfer of specialized occupations of all kind from the context of the kin groups to factors organized on bureaucratic bureaucratic principles. This means that occupational role and role occupant would be an principle separated, and that prepon- preponderant criteria for determining occupations would be performance qualities, and that economic rewards and social mobility would constitute the principal standards for evaluating the worth or the status of any given role. This is regarding industrialization. Uh, Next, we'll see race has a biological concept criteria of racial classification. The term race refers to the categorization of humans into populations or groups on the basis of various sets of heritable characteristics. A racial classification is given to a group of individuals who, sh- who sh- share a certain number of anthropological traits which is necessary so that they not be confused with others. There are two aspects which must be distinguished: the phenotypical and genotypical. Phenotypical means a individual what he achieved, and someone what is achieving these days. And next, the race is the common understanding draws upon difference not only of skin color and physical attributes, but also of language, nationality, and religion. Day by day, this race is changed. It's only not. It is not regarding only skin color, but also regarding their language, their nationality, and their religion. These race categories are often used as ethnic intensifiers. The aim of justifying the exploitation of one group by another. Race is an idea that has become so fixed that there is no room for open mindedness. There is, sorry, there is no room for open mindedness when challenging the idea of racial categories over the year. There has been a drastic change in the way the term race is used by scientists. Essentially, there is a major difference between the biological and sociological views of race. Next, next we'll see. Uh, In 1758, a Swedish botanist named Carlos Linnaeus, he's a scientist, botanist. He established the classification system still in use for various forms of life. He listed 4 categories that he labeled as varieties of the human species. To each he attributed inherited biological as well as learned cultural characteristics. He described Homo european as light-skinned, blonde, and gone by laws, and Homo american was copper colored and was regulated by customs. Homo asiatic was sooty and dark eyed and gone by opinions. Homo african was black and indolent and gone by impulse. We can, in retrospect, recognize the ethnocentric assumptions involved in these descriptions, which imply a descending order of prestige. Most striking is the labeling of the 4 varieties as governed by laws, customs, opinions, and impulse, with Europeans on the top and the Africans at the bottom. In fact, different populations within all 4 varieties would have had all 4 forms of behavior. Next, in later years, many European scientists defined race by separating Homo sapiens into 3 to 6 different groups. In this, Australoid, those from Australia, Melanesian islands, and Caucasoid, Europe, North Africa, Southwest Asia. Next, Mongoloid, East Asia, Siberia, the Americans. Next, Negroid, Central and Southern Africa. And Native Americans. Last, Polynesians. The scientist justification for these 6 groups was that members of these groups shared similar physical characteristics and originated in a particular region of the world. During the 19th century, theories of race were advanced both by the scientific community and in the popular daily and periodical press. One idea that was taken into belief was racial standing based on skull size and features. The human skull was used as a way to justify the idea of races. The structural of the skull, especially the jaw formation and facial angles, revealed the positions of various races on the evolutionary scale, and a debate raged on whether there had been one creation for all mankind or several. Next, Biological anthropologists have intensively studied and described the biological variations that exist in the human species. Anthropologists agree that there are three major types of explanations for the variations within and between animal species. In the first one is natural selection, is proposed by Charles Darwin. In the first explanation, it refers to how in a particular habitat, variations in hereditary traits enable some members of a population to survive and have more offspring that inherit the favorable traits of the parent. And second, nation. Hmm. A second explanation is called gene flow. The flow of genes occurs because people from one population mate with those in another. In the colonial history of the United States, persons who had emigrated from Europe mated with enslaved Africans. After the Civil War, people from these two populations were able to marry in some states, and informal mating continued in all cities. Genetic, genetics, genetics in 1950s compared hemoglobin traits in African Americans, Europeans, and West Africans and concluded that as much as 30% of measured traits in African Americans came from European mating. Today, in the United States, those people who identify themselves as Black or African American range in skin color and other traits from light skinned to dark skinned. Various partners of gene flow are to be found between people all around the world, adding to the complexities of race in world. And next, third one, the third process, genetic drift. Third one, genetic drift, a phenomenon that occurs from one generation to another or when people move from one geographic area to another. By chance, the next generation are those who move. Many differ from the parental population in some genetic characteristics. It has no connection with natural selection or mating preferences. It has already been demonstrated how adoptive traits such as skin color and sickle cell vary in a pattern that do not support identification of distinct races. Beginning in the 1940s, scientists began to realize that the racial map of human beings did not match what they were learning of human genes. Scientists do agree with the idea that people look different mainly because of the varied environments in which they and their ancestors lived. They had physically changed as environmental conditions warranted. Take skin color as an example. It is essentially in adaptation to the amount of sun received. People from regions with loss of direct overhead sunlight, the tropics, tend to have dark skin than people from cloudy or oblique sunlight regions, like northern temperate zones. Since melanin protects the skin from harmful ultraviolet radiation, people with more melanin in tropical areas tended to live longer and produce more children than people who were melanin deficient. Sunlight also stimulates vitamin D production. People from Northern Europe and Asia who had little or no melanin were able to absorb more of the little sunlight there was, which enabled them to produce more vitamin D. Next, we'll see vast new data in human biology have completely revamped the traditional nations of race. Race is biological term that describes the DNA structure of an individual as a fixed attribute that cannot be changed. This idea is used in biology to discuss how different peoples adapt to environments and hence making the race have no scientific basis. Today, most scientists reject the concept of race as a valid way of defining human beings. Researchers no longer believe that races are distinct biological categories created by differences in genes that people inherit from their ancestors. Genes vary, but not in the popular nations of black, white, yellow, red, and brown races. Many biologists and anthropologists race is a social, cultural, Many biologists and anthropologists have concluded that race is a social, culture, and political concept based largely on superficial appearances. In the past, races by the imposition of discrete boundaries upon continuous and often discordant biological variation. The concept of race is therefore construct and not one valid classification or an explanatory process. Popular everyday awareness of race is transmitted from generation to generation through cultural learning. Attributing race to an individual or a population amounts to applying a social and cultural label that lacks scientific consensus, and supporting data. While anthropologists continue to study how and why humans vary biologically, it is apparent that human populations differ from one another much less than do population in other species because we use our culture rather than our physical differences to aid us in adapting to various environments. Next, we'll see influence of caste, class, and race on health and health practices. Yeah, seeing human health is interval environment, that is genetic constituents and external environment, that is the surrounding in which he lives. Internal means it's his genetics, external means where he is living. It has been observed are prevalent in one particular caste, class, or race. The lifestyle pattern caste, class, and race. Lifestyle include eating, living, other daily routine activity. Is included lifestyle of human beings. In case of in case of scheduled caste or scheduled tribes, its members due to improper hygienic practice, poor eating habits, and inadequate knowledge about health and diet causes them to more prone to infectious diseases as compared to other castes such as Brahmins. Like Brahmins, they are more concerned about their health, and they used to maintain their good hygienic practices, and they used to eat good healthy foods as compared to this scheduled caste or scheduled tribes. They used to take poor eating habits, and they're suffering with poverty, and they're not maintaining that hygienic practices. Because of this, they may used to get the diseases. Next, health problems related to undernutrition, infectious diseases, and sexually transmitted diseases are more in lower and middle classes. It means acute diseases are more among these classes, but in case of upper class, chronic diseases such as obesity, hypertension, etc. Because these low caste people are living in a same place with a consistency, because of their poverty, they suffer with undernutrition and like infectious diseases also. But these higher class people, they'll suffer with the chronic diseases like obesity and hypertension. Uh, these are the common. And lastly, some of the health problems in one particular race are common as compared to other race groups. Uh, like white skin people are more prone to skin cancer. Here ends the understand this chapter easily. I am suggesting you to watch the movie called Article 15. Thank you.